Just want to tell you what my first question
Well, my name
was
is
gonna be.
Trudy Sunderman, and I am representing AAUW, which is American Association of University Women. And we are thrilled to have a panel of women in politics because this is the year. This is the year, this is the time, and we are going to make all kinds of difference after November 6th. November 6th?
Six,
November
yes.
6th.
Don't say seven.
Teresa knows
Six.
Put it on your forehead every time you look in a mirror, you'll remember. So, anyway, welcome. Glad to have you here.
Right. I also would like to add my welcomes to everyone. Thank you guys for coming out on a busy Saturday morning. We know the fall is busy with, well, sports, but also lots of great political activities and ways to engage in our community. So thank you all for being here. This is our second joint meeting and program between the American Association of University Women and the League of Women Voters. Both of our organizations agree how important it is for women to be active and engaged in the political process. So we are really happy to have Jean Lloyd George with us today from 50-50-2020, another group. I'm sorry, Jones, not George.
A lot of people make that mistake.
Yeah, well, that's Lloyd George is a prime minister, so
Right.
yes. Sorry about that.
They've taken you up here.
Right.
So another organization that works to get women actively involved in the political process by running for office. So both organizations, we kind of met and brainstormed a little bit about our topic today and agree that what women bring to public office is unique and needed at the local, state, and national levels. So we're wondering, what is it involved in the choice and how they choose to run for office? What are some of the challenges and the rewards in doing so? And how can we both encourage and support them women in their run for office? So to answer some of these questions, Jean is going to moderate a panel, and our third panelist will be coming momentarily. So we thought we'd get started a little bit to keep on time. But before I introduce our panelists, again, if you coffee, water, snacks, please help yourself. We also have some information about the League of Women Voters, the AAUW, and a brochure about 50-50-2020 and getting women elected. So please help yourself there. I also want to point out there's a directory of elected officials and some information, a postcard on what voting will look like this fall at the polls. So some helpful information on what you might need to bring with you. So with that, let me introduce our wonderful group of women today, starting with our moderator, Jean Lloyd Jones, who served in our Iowa House of Representatives from 1979 until 1989, and then in the Senate from 89 to 1995. She's been involved with the Iowa Peace Institute, the Iowa League of Women Voters, and 50-50 by 2020. She is actively involved in achieving political equity through this group for Iowa women by recruiting, training, and mentoring female candidates. Our panelists today that we're very happy have taken time out of campaign time and all of their busy pursuits in the community. We'll start with Teresa Daubitz, who has been employed for 20 years as a social worker, giving her first-hand experience with behavioral health, Medicaid, and Medicare. She is a first-time political candidate running for the Iowa legislature in House District number 66. We have Monica Vernon with us this morning, the founder and CEO of the market research company, Vernon Research Group. She is a former two-term member of the Cedar Rapids City Council and the former mayor pro tem. She has also been a candidate for Iowa's 1st Congressional District and Lieutenant Governor of Iowa. That's right. Okay. Kind of new to Iowa, I just want to make sure I don't have anything wrong. And Kirsten Running Marquardt will be joining us momentarily. She is actually cutting the ribbon at our new Cedar Rapids Historical Center. So she'll be along momentarily. And Kirsten is going to bring us the perspective of a sitting representative, someone who has gone through the electoral process. She is previously a director of Iowa Healthcare and has also worked for federal delegation members from the state of Iowa. So she is now in her third term as Iowa House of Representatives District number 69. So we'll welcome her when she comes. This morning we thought we would start with Jean facilitating some questions, and then after about 45 minutes or so, we'll open it up, if that's okay with everyone on our panel, to questions from the audience, because I know these women also, and the gentleman here will have some questions for all of you. So with that, I'll turn it over, and thank you again, everyone, for coming.
Okay. Thank you very much. I want to commend the League of Women Voters and AAUW for collaborating on this meeting and on this series of meetings. I think it sets a good example for politicians in working together. You see, you can do it. It can be done. Just a brief information about 50-50 in 2020, and pick up one of these if you can. This organization was started in 2010, so we have been alive for 8 years. We set the goal of electing 50% of the seats in the Iowa legislature to be held by women by the year 2020. Obviously, we're not going to make that ambitious goal, but we hope that a trajectory has been set and that it eventually will happen. Not that we want women to take over at all, but we know that women do bring different perspectives, different experiences, and different skills to the table. And those joined with the talents and skills and experiences that men have make the right combination to reflect more accurately our population, and we believe to result in better legislation. And you can see the programs that we sponsor on the back of our little pamphlet here that you're going to pick up. So I'm going to start us off by asking the two panelists who are here. And Monica, I'll start with you.
Okay.
Because you started before Teresa. So I want to ask you, what motivated you to run the first time? And did that change over the years as you sought other offices?
Okay, well, the first time I ran was for Cedar Rapids City Council, and I had come off being a leader in the Chamber of Commerce. As a small businesswoman, I was part of that and had been asked to be on the board and then the executive board, and then I was the chair. And that's a whole nother story of how I had to kind of fight my way into the chair. But we promised the community that in this new form of government with 5 districts and 3 at-large and a mayor in the council manager form, we promised the community that really strong, good, involved people would run and would care about the community. And I had no thought that I was going to do that with 3 children and a small business and a lot of other things going on in my life. I thought, you know, people will step up. This is the United States, good people. And their first 2 years, I thought they did some good things, but I kept thinking, of course I'm a consultant by trade, and my husband always says one of the reasons he likes it when I've run for office is because I try to make things better, and he doesn't want me to work on him anymore. So, you know, because the chamber was so involved in that movement, we studied and studied about the Cedar Rapids City Council and the city and what could be made better. And when I didn't, you know, when I thought of all this set of things they should be working on, and I saw them working on a little part of it, and I was nudging them to do some of these other things, and they weren't really listening, I thought, Well, doggone it, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but the Gazette covered something, and I was using my hands to talk to my husband that morning on our little counter in the kitchen, knocked the coffee over. We could hardly read the article then. And I decided, you know what, I'm really fired up. I think I'm going to run. I promised people, and I think I can do better than these people or just as well, and I think I'll go get some other stuff done. So that's why I ran, and I think sometimes you just have to have this sort of feeling in your gut. You know, you have it in your brain and you have it in your heart, but then when it gets in your gut, you got like the three-legged stool that you got to go get it done. So I think that propelled me through that whole first race. And later on, what it is then you see more. Because I was 6 months into my term was the big flood, and of course the set of what things I thought we should do all of a sudden became, times 100. And so there were so many more things to do, and I'd read so much and I knew so much. And then when you get up on that stack of things, I ran for Congress because we just saw so many problems with the federal system. And in dealing, you learned about your state and you learned about the feds in a way that, most people never do, even most city council members never do, because we were relying so much on their help.
Right. Okay, good. Teresa, how about you? Why did you decide to run?
Well, I was telling Monica earlier, I have no idea. I mean, what was I thinking? It's very similar to that, is that my representative has ran unopposed for the last couple of terms. He beat the last woman, Renee Schulte, only by a few. So he's been in the legislature for 10 years, and I thought, we don't have anybody that can run that has some real practical experience as far as where our money's going and what we're doing. And just because mental health, that's my baby, that's what I know. Social services. And I thought we really needed to have somebody in there who had some real timely, practical experience in the legislature. And one of the great things from what I've learned, is that we all have our special piece. We all have our niche of what we do well. And that's what I do well, and that's what I can bring to the table. But I'm also a mom of 4 kids, currently still, who are forever. Never ends. Yeah, but our lives have changed. Like your mom is here, fantastic, but now we're at that different age where I just now become a member of the Empty Nest Club. I don't know what that means yet.
Welcome.
Yeah, but so I've gone through that phase, and now I'm caring for my parents. And so our lives have changed and evolved. But that was I really wanted to bring a new voice. Our demographics have changed immensely. I think we needed more of a moderate voice, someone who was a little bit more middle of the road, to represent our district. And I didn't know much about the 50-50 in 2020, and then somebody called me and said, you need to go and get signed up for this thing. And I said, I don't even know what you're talking about, because they thought I was running because I had heard about 50-50 in 2020. And I said, well, okay, and that's why I'm running. Okay, that works for me.
There you go, Jean.
Okay. So then I want to know how you prepared yourself for your first run. And you
Wow.
just got into that, so
Yeah,
you
so
start.
how did I prepare? Well, I reached out to a lot of different people to say, what do I need to do? What's it going to take? Why? My first thing was money, and that's been the biggest shocker for me, is you have to have money. And you ask these people, and you need about $10,000. And I said, okay. And then 2 months later, it was, well, actually, you need about $30,000. Well, 50 would really, and I'm thinking, for the love of bejesus, you're just not prepared for that kind of information. Because again, my role is a social worker, and I work with people who don't have money. And I don't earn money either. So that kind of dollar value, that has been a real learning point for me, is going and asking people for money to help spread your message of, mine is compassionate conservatism. And so I believe that we need to take care of everybody, but do it fiscally responsible. It's kind of my tagline. So it's that. And then preparing yourself. You're never fully prepared. They say door knocking, but you don't realize door knocking is 30,000 doors. I mean, you don't realize that you work all day from 8 to 5:30, and then you're supposed to go knock doors. And how do you get that done? So I wasn't fully prepared. So drinking out of a fire hose at this point in time,
Right.
you just learn as you go.
Right. How about you, Mike?
Well, she's reminding me of the time Lee Clancy said to me, "Oh, Monica, door knocking's great. I lost 20 pounds." Well, I think I gained 20 pounds. And I called her later and I said, "I don't know what's happened." Well, then I realized that my campaign manager and I used to stop at McDonald's because we felt like, this was such a big deal. We have to get a little reward, so I stopped doing that. But, I think for me, on a city council race, what I realized is I had been preparing but without knowing about it. Because I think I remember these guys came to help me because they heard I was out. And you call everyone you know. You call everyone you can think of and say, "Would you support me? What do you think of this idea?" Because in the beginning, it was just me and Bill and the spilled coffee. And, and you call your family and you let them know you're thinking about this, and, you call everybody. But, you never really prepared because there are all these things and there are lots of surprises along the way. 50-50 by 2020 didn't really exist. And so I think for me, the way I was preparing without knowing about it was I was on the City Planning and Zoning Commission. I had been president in the Junior League. I'm kind of going backwards in my mind here. Started out with different boards and commissions. I was on the campfire, I was on the campfire board, and then I did some stuff with Girl Scouts, and then I did, I started at age 25 serving on boards. And, you kind of get that idea, that leadership. And then Junior League and led the charge to build the Match Phillips shelter. And that was a kind of a group, that I got to know. And I was in Professional Women's Network, and then the Chamber of Commerce. And what you don't realize, but when Emily's List comes in, when you're running, especially for Congress, here's what they do. They have you do like a daisy thing or a spider web, and here's you. And then all these, kind of concentric circles or like petals, however you want to think about it. And they take you all the way back to your childhood. So, well, have you always lived in the same house? No. Well, we lived by Knoll Ridge Park, and where'd you go to school? I went back to my preschool, Kenwood Preschool, and I remembered a few kids from there that I stayed in touch with, even without social media, as I tell my kids. So, I think that having that kind of a life, and like you're looking at your social workers that know you and respect you, and so it's all those affinity groups, and I ended up being kind of lucky because I had a lot of them. Not because I thought I would ever run for office, but just because I had followed passions of mine, things I felt strongly about, and I'd gotten involved. And then what happened is those people came forward and said, "Hey, we know how you work. It isn't just like seeing you at the grocery store and saying hi and, pleasantries. We've seen you in tough situations." And I think those things, in my talks, I've encouraged young women at, say in high school and the University of Iowa and different places where I've spoken, get involved in things that matter to you. And from that, if the Spirit then moves you, that's great. And you'll have a wonderful background. But it'll also be so real. It'll be something that, it won't be a house of cards. It'll really be a foundation.
So obviously you don't start at age 10 and say, "I'm going to build my resume for running for office." But that's the way it worked out.
Well, and I think that's a great point, is we really we create those relationships early on. You work with people, and I'm a rarity, as many of you know. There are not very many Republican social workers out there. And so, but people who've worked with me know what I do. They know the passion that I have. And so I've got a lot of people who are supportive of that. And so if you've worked well and if you've treated people, that golden rule, that's what we tell our young kids is, be careful how you talk to people on your way up, because you're going to meet them on your way back down. And you will. You're going to meet them back. And so they're going to remember that.
And Jean, I was going to say that, I did a research study one time for the Iowa Women Lead Change, the IWLC, and it was about women in leadership. And we decided that we weren't going to just talk about formal leadership. We were going to talk about every kind of leadership. We were going to try to get somebody from all 99 counties in Iowa. And we were going to find out, like people who lead a 4-H chapter out in a rural or a church group, or leadership is what I believe.
Right.
And so I remember when this whole group was getting the study ready, I said, I want to go back to kindergarten. And they were all laughing at me. And I'm the seasoned researcher, come on. But, they thought it was ridiculous. And I said, but we don't know where it starts. And so if we count out anything, and it was incredible, but the women who were leaders in the state of Iowa, and I count them as leaders, if they're leading a PTA in the smallest rural school district in the state, they're a leader. And if they're elected to the State House under the Golden Dome, they're a leader, and everything in between. And so as we analyzed, we had hundreds and hundreds of women who ended up responding. And it went down to elementary school. Somebody noticed that they had leadership and encouraged them. And there are studies that show that women do need some kind of encouragement. And a teacher said, hey, you were great on the playground getting the kids together to help me start that activity. It can be as small as that.
Right.
And so, I just think you were asking, like, where does all this start? I think it does start in all of us somewhere way back when. And so if we wait to get girls programs in upper high school or in college, it's too late. It maybe isn't too late, but think of what we can do if we make sure we're talking to them from the very beginning.
Yeah, good point. Welcome, Kirsten.
Good morning.
Glad to have you.
Thank you. I apologize for being late. There was a project that I'd been working on for a while. I serve on the History Center's board here, and then also at the state level, we helped secure a grant for the Douglas Mansion to be revamped. And at 10 a.m. this morning, we had the ribbon cutting for that. And so, I couldn't. So, and there were some people who gave very long speeches. So I apologize for, of course, it wasn't me. But I wanted to make sure that I could come here today, and I appreciate you guys having this, making this available. And also, having the topic of understanding women and when they should run, or they should run always, encouraging them, and sort of the topic of women in politics is really important because I have helped recruit in the past, and I was recruited myself to run for office. They do, like other people have said, and I'm sure this has probably been repeated, but you have to ask women several more times than you do men. And it's interesting, there have been sometimes where I've been calling people on the phone, and there will be a woman who is overqualified. All of the degrees, all the letters behind her name, involved in our community, really understands how policy affects real people in the state of Iowa. And then, she'll just step back and say she doesn't think she's smart enough to do this. Right. She doesn't think she knows enough. She doesn't think she's ready. She's not polished enough. She doesn't think that she could speak in front of cameras with sort of the eloquence that's needed. And then sometimes I'll send her tapes of where I have failed miserably in front of the cameras, like just miserably. And I'm like, it's okay, you'll fail, and that sort of also makes you a good legislator as well. You're a real person, and things happen, but you just try your best, and being your authentic self, like that's what really shines through. On the other hand, there have been times when I have called male candidates to talk to them about running for office. And there's been a few times, and I'm exaggerating only a little bit, but they'll say things like, oh, I knew somebody was going to be calling me. I might consider this office. I have some other offers, sort of thing, that maybe I'm considering at the moment. And there is a real difference when you're communicating back and forth. And we really need to make sure that we have a voice in the political system. It's our perspective that is desperately needed. And, and I also have to say, that doesn't mean as well that if you're a woman candidate, that means that I'm going to support you. It comes down to me for policy. There are a lot of women candidates who not only are elected to office, but who are running, who I feel they don't represent, or when they have voted against my rights as a woman, either to go to the doctor's office and have the conversations I need, the voter suppression bill that just came through, it works to not only minorities, seniors, children, but I have been that, middle-class, hardworking mom who shows up to the polls, and thank goodness for the injunction that happened at the state level against the voter suppression bill that came through, because I've been there where you don't have your wallet with you. You barely have your car keys to get out of the car to get in there. And then if there's a line and you have kids that you have to go pick up, or you have to have supper on the table because you have to run 15 other places to get into basketball practice, religious ed that night, whatever. I mean, there's all of those things. And there are, people out there in political parties and think tanks that think about ways to put blocks and ways to discourage people from voting. And so, and I'm only bringing that, it's League of Women Voters, as part of this as well, so I'm bringing that up as well. So I don't want to say that I blatantly support all women, but I do appreciate women having our perspective that we do, and that it's really needed in not only the legislature, city council, county board of supervisors, and other, I guess.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, good job, Jean.
All right.
I've done a couple panels with her, and not only an honor to sit at the same table or be in the same room with her, but she does a really good job of knowing when to say, "Great, thanks, Kirsten. Way to go. Gold star for you."
Yeah, I've heard you before.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going down the row here, and I'm going to ask another question.
Okay.
And you've already covered a couple that I already asked.
Oh.
So the next question is, you've already said your biggest challenge was raising money.
And time management.
I was going to say, what's your next one?
It would be time management and
Yeah.
balancing
Talk about
the
that.
priorities, because, even though, like you said, we have children forever, while I may not have them living with me, they're still calling me 24/7 and asking me this and that and the other thing, and then caring for parents and working full-time, and where do you get that door knocking in, or where do you get that next meeting in? And that's the biggest thing, is creating priorities. And then when you step back and say, you know what, I'm going to go visit my son in Missouri. Well, no, you can't do that. You have to door knock. Sorry. My kids are going to be my priority, and my kids will always be my priority. And so that's been the biggest challenge. There's a lot of people who like to pass that kind of judgment. And my theory is, if you had that much judgment to pass, you should have run. So,
How about you, Monica?
Biggest challenges in running? She was talking about they upped it to 30,000 or 50,000, and when you run for Congress, they want you to, raise $3 to $5 million. And they ask how many assets you have, and it's, and I was endorsed by a group, one of the first endorsees of my cycle, getting the big money out of politics, because it really does eliminate people who either A, don't have some money or access to it. I'm on that access to it because I ran a small business, and because of the really full daisy I was talking about, of all these different groups I'd been involved in, I knew a lot of people. And because I had always sold about $1.5 million worth of research a year to keep my paychecks going for my work, I had some sales background. So many great people who are educators or social workers or whatever, that's not their background. So always the money is there. And I think time management, weight management, those are all, oh my God. One of the things that for me, though, that I really think was tough, and it's in this time of, where I watched the whole McCain funeral, And I kept thinking to myself, I just want us to be the United States of America again. I just want us to work together again. Sure, we're going to have our disagreements. We do in our families, we do in all of our communities, and that makes us better. But a lot of times candidates in an era where there's so much polarization, you can't get into that other group to just talk. And there are things that, and people even in the middle, they're, finding spots where, once you're in, it's a party system, so you choose a party, and you're with that party, but then sometimes those are so far over here, and I love the party I chose, I'm strong about that, but I also know that in a state like this where you basically have 30% in one party and 30% in the other, there's about 40% of the people who are in the middle. And really having access to, especially those people, but friends of mine who, for whatever reason, are in the other party. Because I think there are so many issues where just by us talking, I think there's a persuasion there. That's my biggest ability is, persuasive language. But also there's compromise that could be had if we would talk to each other. And I just this morning was going through something and they were replaying, and I don't know why Michelle Obama must be out doing something. I've been really, she is always, but, and so there was something about this little moment where George Bush handed her a cough drop. You guys must have all seen that, but I missed that clip. I was busy doing other stuff. So I replayed it a couple times this morning. And, in some ways that's a dumb thing. That's a dumb little thing. Not dumb, but it's minor. But it was such a big deal because people saw, someone from the other side handing to the other side. And it's really true that they are kind of buddies. They like each other's sense of humor. They probably disagree on a lot of things, but they probably agree on a whole lot more than they disagree on if they really had time to talk to each other. So, I think that sometimes that access to each other, to really talk about what matters in our world. And I think of a woman named Libby Slabby who beat a lot of things into me over the years. Sometimes she was gentle, and sometimes she just got out the sledgehammer. And she taught me a lot. You have taught me a lot. So I think that that's part of campaigning is maybe not just teaching, but listening to people and having access to people. And that is really, really tough.
Right. Kirsten, how about you? What is your biggest challenge in running? Was your biggest challenge the first time you ran?
Of course, asking for money is just difficult, and I'm Norwegian and I've been raised that way, and it's difficult, to sort of ask for, but you have to get over that and make sure that people understand, and you understand that it's people who are supporting you and then what you stand for, and then the good pieces of legislation you can pass. It was hard for me to learn. I had to learn real quick. It's not my way or the highway when it comes to policy. You have to really work with others. You have to also start with a mindset of being open and communicating, even though there are people that I work with who see the world very differently than I do. They come from a very different place, a very different background than I do. And I think that is why I have been able to be successful in, I have been in a Republican-controlled chamber in the Iowa House. I'm a Democrat, and I have been year after year been able to get through good pieces of legislation. I'm not sitting here bragging about that, but it is, that is something that I'm very proud of, but I had to learn how to do that and how to maneuver, and that's difficult, because I'll have a meeting where I'm working with somebody on something, and then we go out on the floor and they vote on a different bill that just shocks me. And so those relationships and those sort of conversations have to happen even when you're going through sort of tough times with people that you're working with. The other thing that has been very difficult for me to sort of work through, I'm a very sarcastic person sometimes. I think when you're working with different people in my whole life, I'm half Norwegian, half Irish, so the Irish comes through a little bit more sometimes than I'd like. And trying to find that balance of, once in a while I'll say a little swear word, nothing too bad. And I remember there was a panel I was on with Jean, and I saw Jean and Senator Tinsman was in the audience, and it wasn't a really bad swear word, and they both looked at me like, oh, I don't know if you remember this or not. But, it's a balance, making sure, I'm not really a well-polished politician. That's just not me. I've tried. I had a marketing person who worked with me one time, and when I got done, they gave a little report and said, well, you got authentic going for you, I guess, so kind of go from there. And I'm like, all of this work, and this is what we have, and that was really, and so I try to pull from my strengths, and I don't, and that's what I think, all of you, if you're considering running for office, or, if you're talking to other people who are considering running for office, that, you have the skills right now, and you are good enough to run for office right now. And when you're communicating that to girls from all ages, when they're little, some people, oh, she's so bossy pants. No, she's developing her leadership skills at a very early stage. So we just have to have that kind of communication, and I think that will help future generations as well. Know and understand that serving others in the form of being elected to office is available for all of us.
Okay. My next question is, what are the rewards? And you've already touched on it.
I won't go again.
So, Monica, what did you find were the rewards once you won the city council?
Well, I just like progress. I think maybe I should have been in construction. This house next door to us got remodeled or reworked, and I just every day couldn't wait to get home and see what they've done. And then I realized, okay, I probably wouldn't be that great in construction, but I loved it that I would watch what these guys would do every day. And I want to see things happen. I want us to move forward. I want, obviously I want it to be done in a quality way, but I don't want to be waiting too long for our future. And, when I think about the 8 years I served on city council, and I was kind of bossy pants, for 2 years I was the only woman, and there were so many things we needed to do. That when you're rebuilding, you're making 50 years of decisions in 5 years, and you're relocating your library, and you're deciding what that's going to be like, and you're central firing. And I remember the guys were like, we don't need to do anything with the bathrooms in the old hotel, which is now the DoubleTree. And I remember being in there with a group of girls on some overnight thing, and those bathrooms were from the 1970s, and harvest gold. And I thought, you know what, people will come to a thing at our convention center and stay overnight there, and they will never come back. And it's a good thing that I was bossy pants about that, and pushed, because actually they found mold all the way down, and it would have been a huge problem. They would have had to open up and mitigate, would have cost us a whole lot more. In fact, when Hilton came in, they insisted on that, so I was sort of vindicated. But I think that, making that progress, I think it was either Neiman or Marcus who said that, you can make almost anything happen if you don't have to take credit for it. Right. And when I drive around Cedar Rapids, I can see my fingerprints everywhere. But you all don't know that, and you don't need to know. That's not how I am. But when you look at tree-lined streets, when you look at more sidewalks, more pedestrian-friendly, when you look at buildings that address the street and aren't shoved back behind a parking lot, when you look at a variety of kinds of uses, or, we were building things that were all concrete and glass, and I said, can't we have some red brick? And then they built that beautiful fire station on First Avenue. So it's just stuff like that, the homes that we did on infill, I thought that they should match the neighborhoods and not look like sore thumbs. So they needed to be peaked roofs and have the porch. And they listened almost to a fault. Now it's like, okay, we can shake it up a little bit, guys. But so I think, that progress of feeling like something happened. I also lost for a number of things. And the news media around here can't get that straight. And I know there are people in the room here who have tried and not gotten that position. I won 2 primaries and didn't quite get to the final seat.
Right.
And, I think the relationships that you make, I think the humility that comes with it. You know what it's like to be out there. You know what it's like, no matter what happens, you've been out there. You felt the weight of the world. You felt like you were nude in front of everybody in the city, the county, the congressional district, the entire state. And, but somehow you pick yourself back up, and I think you're stronger for it. And, just the wonderful people that you meet is that, to me, making the progress and, and just the incredible relationships.
Yeah. Kirsten, do you have anything else to say about the rewards?
There's been legislation. One was a EpiPen bill that I had negotiated with pharmaceutical companies to have a EpiPen in each of our public school buildings. And then also the big piece of that legislation was that nurses would be able to, without jeopardizing their license, use an EpiPen on a child when they're having their first instance, if it's an emergency at school, which that often happens. The children are at school when they come in contact with their first initial reaction. I passed that bill. It was my language. It went through both chambers. It was very, very difficult. And then had the governor sign it. 3 weeks later, my son was EpiPenned on his, but he wasn't at school. But we didn't know he had severe allergies, and he was 9 years old at the time and rushed to the emergency room. And so there's things like that I just think to myself, the law hadn't been enacted at the time, but what if he had had his first instance at school? And, you had nurses at the time who were making decisions based on, they put their licenses at risk because they were not supposed to be administering EpiPens when they're not prescribed to children. And we had instances across the state of Iowa where nurses were, trying to get them to the hospital as fast as they can, or the ones who had administered and saved the child's life. And so there are things like that I feel like when I die, or whenever if citizens of House District 69 don't want to elect me to the office that I currently hold, there are things that I can leave with that I have done, and there are things in Cedar Rapids that I have worked really hard for in flood recovery. And it's sort of like Monica said, for me, I'm not going to have some monument that says my name on it. There's not going to be, plaques that say, here's all the great things you did. But for me, I know the words in the code that are my words and that I have worked on with not only LSA, but moving those words through the process to make them legislation. And I feel like those are things that I can leave with and say, the door knocking, the asking people for money, the times when people were yelling at me in my face about, child support isn't constitutional. I mean, that's just a recent one. Those things, and it makes it better, and it makes it absolutely worthy, and it truly has been one of the greatest honors of my life to be able to serve the people of Iowa.
No regrets.
Well, there's some things I've said that I probably regret, but I've learned from those things.
Is it time to stop and ask the audience for questions?
Yes.
Okay, let's see. Does anybody have any questions? I have some more, but I want to give the audience time to. Okay.
Sorry, I got up at the wrong time. I was wondering, what are some things that inspire you guys throughout the challenges and the political climate right now? That's kind of terrible.
How do they stay inspired to run? You
Yes,
mean
yeah.
in spite of the political
Right.
climate right
Yeah.
now? Okay, well, why don't you take that one on?
Well, I think that wow, what inspires me to run? I think that creating that change and giving the vision of being able to do something that you've never done before, and if you fall flat on your face, you will be able to get up the next morning and say, I did everything I possibly could to be successful. And that's that's what I'm doing. You know, on November 7th, I may get up in the morning and I'm going to be thrilled to death because I'm going to know I did my hardest and I'm going to get to continue to go to a job that I love. So that's what's really impactful for me. It's inspirational to get a call from someone who I've hung, you know, we're going and door knocking, and not everybody's home when we door knock. So you hang the thing, and somebody who actually reads it instead of just throws it in the recycle bin and calls you because your phone number's on there, right? And says, I'm really embarrassed to say this, but I've never voted before. Okay, I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat or a no party or a libertarian, it doesn't matter. Why haven't you voted? And so that's, you know, why. And, you know, that is an opportunity to help educate people on this is your right. You know, we didn't have these rights forever, especially as women. And so that's been an impactful moment and inspiration to get to educate people on that opportunity.
Well, I think at the worst times, I kind of would lay in bed and think, well, I still have my husband and my kids and my greater family, and, you know, I'm really a lucky person, and you know, that's when it's really low, because you think, you know, but, you know, I think for me, again, it's that progress that you were able to be part of, and I recruited a woman to run for council, Ann Poe. She was working for Governor Culver after the floods, and we were having, you know, it's hard with all the egos at local, and I think you got to have an ego to get out of bed in the morning. I mean, I'm not saying those are always bad, but between local trying to work together, county and city, and then the state, and then feds, and Ann came in, and she had grown up like right on the river on the west side over on Ellis Boulevard, and there was just something about her, I could click with her immediately. And we ran so many programs through Annie to the different committees from the city level, and we just found this person. And so she didn't want to be in Des Moines anymore, and so she moved back to Cedar Rapids, and I convinced her to run for city council. Well, now she's my walking buddy. And one of the things I worked really hard on is passing a thing we call Safe CR. Safe CR, and it's about taking care of properties, whether they're rental or owner occupied or commercial, including what the city owns, and we've been called on our own rule. And it was a tough thing to pass, and it was the very first thing ever. You know, the old form of government had 5 fiefdoms, and they did their own things. This is under since '05, the new form of government. It was the first ordinance passed that included, kind of brought everybody together, so that if the police were going to a house, and it was a big party going on, well, solid waste might have been there already that day with garbage strewn around and problems there, or animal control had been there, or housing had been there because the porch, you know, something was happening. So in the past, all those pieces of information weren't together. So they're all together now. Well, Annie and I were on a walk the other day, so I still understand all this. And they're looking here in Cedar Rapids at something that Maggie's been working on, the human trafficking. And there are people in Cedar Rapids in pretty tough, you know, important positions who don't believe we have problems here. And then there are people who believe it but don't know how to deal with it. Yeah. And one of the things Ann and I are talking about is we have Safe CR. And if you're running a commercial establishment that is something that's illegal, then you get dings against that and you pay a fee for what we have to do to mitigate. Yeah. And so, you know, for me, that's inspiration. That's something that the cops told me, we've tried this before, it's never going to work. And I don't even drink beer, and I bet him a pitcher of beer. This one really tall cop that I have to go like this to talk to. And I love him to death. And we passed it, but it took 2 years. So now, it's just so obvious the human trafficking can be part of this. We already have the chassis. So that's like a big inspiration for me that we were able to lay a groundwork, and I thought we could get it done in 6 months. Kirsten probably could have told me a lot better that it would take longer. But we got that done. And now to know that Ann is working off that chassis and putting something really important into the mix. And I hope she gets it done. They aren't there yet.
Good. So you bribed the cop with beer?
Well, when we see each other, he goes, I still haven't paid you off, have I? It's like, we're going to probably joke about this forever.
Kirsten, how about you?
What was the question again?
What inspires you?
How do
They could be
you,
a person too.
Yeah, people inspire me. You inspire me, showing up at the, college group, young Democrats, and talking to them and seeing how active, they are across the state of Iowa. You guys all inspire me who are here today. It's a Saturday morning. There's about 150 other things that you probably could be doing. Lloyd Jones. There's just a lot of the things that, you have your victories and things that you're able to get through, and you need those because things take forever, just like Monica Vernon was saying. And it's also difficult because you'll have a bunch of ideas and you'll really kind of have to focus that down to different priorities that you have. And then maybe one out of those three might make it through, or two out of those three, or you'll get three pieces of a little bit of language in something while you're juggling the big picture, working for appropriations on the budgets that you want, and juggling everything else that comes. But there are people that constituency services is really my favorite part of my job, and there are people who suffer, especially. I'm not trying to be political, I promise, but the MCOs are just a travesty, and what they are doing for the sickest people in our state right now, these for-profit companies that are just holding people just kind of by the neck for their health care needs that they need, and working with some of those people and their families, trying to find solutions to problems. And it's not just working through the MCOs or me on the phone screaming and yelling at them, but it's also, trying to find a community approach and what can we do to get some emergency assistance in while we're trying to, work with the MCOs who are delaying people's care at all costs. I mean, and people still having a good idea, not a good idea, people still having a good attitude about, government, and people still having a good attitude, and people who are still willing to vote when it seems like the system in our state has failed them at times. And so that really encourages me as well, and it also keeps me from, getting too disappointed, because at the federal level right now, there's been a lot of things that you can see that I feel will negatively impact us in the future and moving forward, and can't even let my kid watch the evening news at night because I don't know what people, what the president's going to say maybe, and the conversation I'll have to have with my child to explain with that, we don't talk about people that way, or we don't make fun of people that way, that kind of thing. And so, and then I still just keep coming across people who they still have hope, and they still are inspired to not only participate, but they're eager to participate, to make change, and that really inspires me. Everyday people who are still hopeful.
good. Any other questions?
With this new women becoming re-energized to seek office, do you feel that this is going to carry over into when they're going out to vote? Is this going to encourage more women not only to seek office, but for other women to go out and vote, to actually vote?
I think that everything we do makes a difference. I mean, every drop of water we put in that bucket makes a difference. Not everyone should run. Some people should help others get there. Some people should be the ones who are running MCOs. Some of the, or running them in a different way. Some of them are the ones that should be the researchers that find this stuff out. Some are fiery speakers, and they should go around and do that. Some should start small businesses and make sure that women are treated equally and paid equally. So to me, and of course, the message on voting. Every time we empower, anyone, there's a chance that we empower more people. And so, I think every little bit helps, and I just can't imagine that by, training more women or having more women go through the whole thing and decide not to run. But that's not a lost cause because they learn so much. And we talk and we share things with our sisters and our mothers and our friends and our daughters and our nieces and our nephews and our husbands and, our coworkers. And every time you do that, you're empowering someone and you're giving them, I ran my caucus in 16 and I'm my precinct captain and I've done that since then. And there was a woman that walked in, and honest to God, I'm not sure, but I think she might have been with, and I guess I can say this, she was with her pimp, basically. I'm almost positive. But she wanted to vote. It was the strangest situation, or they were in an abusive relationship, I'm not sure. But I was so excited and she was shaking. She had, she wanted to show me her ID. She had registered. I said, you're on the list. You're on the list. You did all the right things. Or maybe we sent her to get registered that day. I think that was it. And that was my husband, and we went over there, and she came early. And we numbered off. We had 216 or something and I had everybody say their number, and I said, you're going to be number 1. And she told me that she had been in some kind of abusive, she was real shaky, but I think about her often. I have no idea, I didn't memorize her name, but I just thought, wow, somebody got her here. I didn't know her to get her there. So I think that there's a lot of, everything we do pushes this forward. And voting is a huge part of that, because you have to have some confidence. You have to feel like you're worthy. There's all kinds, I didn't realize that because I was raised in a home where, of course, you were going to vote. But many people did not weren't raised that way.
I say real quickly, yes, the answer is yes, that I believe that there are more women that are voting, and I've had women this cycle tell me, I think 3 or 4 now, that, and it's a quiet conversation, I'm really embarrassed, I've never voted before, can you maybe walk me through this experience? And not only that, 2 of them, I have kind of, and I encourage others to maybe do this as well. This is one way that it worked for me, maybe it won't work for you, but to say, hey, why don't we do this? We will go vote, here's an early voting site, we'll go vote, and then we'll go grab a cup of coffee and we'll talk about some stuff. And I think that, take a friend to go vote, and that's just, even that little small thing, because it is scary for people at times. I mean, they kind of talk about candidates and what they stand for, and who they are, and make sure everybody's flipping their ballot over too, because there's some really important, I've got a really important county supervisor race on my, on the back of my ballot that I want to make sure that people, are looking at. My name's on the very bottom right-hand corner, and I'm like, please go to the bottom. But the taking, making sure that people are voting down ballot, but also encouraging people that it is an easy process and that you'll be there with them. Not only talk about it before, but maybe let's go have a cup of coffee afterward and make it a thing. And I think and I stole that from another woman, I can't remember her name, but she told me that a long, long time ago. And I've done that a couple times, so.
Good. How about you, Teresa?
But I think it's
What do
great
you think?
what Kristen said is the fact that people are worried about it and scared about it, because I think that they understand that their vote matters. They have actually created that insight within themselves that says, what it matters, how I color in that dot, and I want help doing that. And I think that that's really impactful. I had one other thought while Monica was thinking, and it's left my mind. What was the question again?
The question was, do you think
Women, yes.
women will
So,
vote in greater numbers?
I think they will, because it's a generational activity that has occurred with women stepping up. I think we have many more young people. This 18-year-old, and I was talking earlier, but we've got kids who are the ACADE kids. They're now seniors in high school, and they're 18, and these girls are ready to go and ready to vote. So I think that's going to be the bigger percentage of women voting. I'm not sure if we're going to get the older generations that maybe historically haven't voted, but I think that you're going to get those young folks those 18 to 25 who maybe historically, or maybe who aren't on a college campus where it's a little bit more evident. But I think we're going to get those kids in high school ready to go, and they're going to be out there ready to vote.
Okay. And other questions?
Just a quick question about the fundraising. Is there any possibility of just setting a cap on it and just saying everybody gets equal amount somehow?
Other states do this. There are other states who do that, and there are cities that are working on things like that. New York, they're doing things out there. We have unlimited in the state of Iowa. So in the federal system, every year whether it's the primary or the general, you're limited. I don't know exactly what it is in this cycle, but it was 2,700 last cycle. So the most anybody can give you is 5,200, which is still a lot of money. But at the state, someone could hand Kirsten tomorrow, or Teresa, $50 million. And
It's never happened, ever.
I mean, I'm putting it can
I'm
be
big money,
any
thanks,
number.
Monica,
It
but
can
I'm
be
not-
any number at the state of Iowa.
Yeah.
So the likelihood is, there's a lot of politics involved in that. But I think we're all kind of sick of that, and it would be good to, I think, level the playing field or
Absolutely.
lower that so that it's more about the people and less about the money.
Yep.
That, to me, says a great deal, because that's a scary thing. You know it's going to cost a whole lot of money to even put your name on the hat.
Yeah.
So how do we get that to happen in Iowa?
How do they make it like New York or whatever?
Well, it'd be you guys petitioning your elected representatives at all levels, especially at
If
the
I
state
can, I'll
level.
work on it with you.
Okay, great.
Okay.
And then Kirsten will get it passed in the House. and
yeah.
Teresa will help her, and
I can't think of, at the national level, there's a organization, can you guys think of the name of it? I should remember, they endorsed me, but it's about taking big money out of politics.
Right.
So just Google
I
that.
think there are several groups
Yeah.
working on this. The League of Women Voters, where are you? You have a position, don't you, on getting money out of politics or getting the big money out of
My
politics?
question is, how does this relate with Citizens United?
Well,
I don't know that.
the states can
There's
pass,
homework to do first.
no, the
That
states.
says that corporations
Citizens
are
United
people
is
and
the-
can give
oh,
a lot
yeah.
of money, and it's not really,
It's related.
yeah, but there's also things at the state level we could do. And like Monica said, she's had a lot of experience at the federal and city level too, to kind of give a good perspective on that, but.
And again, it's not just taking the big money out, but it's that Citizens United thing ruling that said that corporations are people.
Right.
And that changed the whole thing, because now they can put their big bucks in. And
And they're not limited to $2,500.
no, it's the craziest thing ever. The good people, if you go back to the Constitution, one man, one vote, one person, one vote, and then instead we go against that and allow, Big Brother, big business, behind closed doors to put in unlimited.
Yeah, and you
But
don't
the
know what
people
you're
are
doing.
limited.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, are we about ready to wrap up, or where are we? Are we about ready to wrap up? or where
Oh,
are
is
we?
it time to wrap up? I don't know what time we're supposed to
having too much
finish.
fun.
Getting close.
It's 17 after.
So do we want to wrap up at 11:30?
So are you getting us to wrap up, or do you have a
We
question?
have 10 minutes.
10 minutes, all right. Then I'm going to ask you all to do one more thing, but I have a couple of comments I want to make that have been suggested by what you say. We have grown up in this culture where women are really second-class citizens. The men have designed our institutions of government. They have written the protocols, and they still call the shots. And I think women are reaching the point now where we have to turn a little click in our heads and say, we have the right to be here. We don't have to ask permission of you guys to run or to be elected. And I think that's happening. And I see that kind of confidence that women are getting. Monica mentioned the things that start very early in kindergarten. And teachers can do a great deal. I remember my daughter one time coming home just furious because the teacher had said, we need a couple of strong boys to lift this box. My daughter was furious. But the attitude of teachers towards the girls and boys should be, fairly equal. And praise for leadership in the little girls, Boys at an early age, I'm telling you, young man, how boys act when they're little, okay? Girls are trained or by instinct or whatever to go sit in their chairs and listen to what the teacher says and obey. Boys don't do that. Boys, I'm quoting from a study that was done of children who were put in a room and told to sit down and talk to each other. The girls were told, and the boys were told to talk to each other. The girls did it. They sat down on in their little chairs and faced each other and smiled at each other and did what they were supposed to do. The boys didn't sit down and talk to each other. They got up and punched each other and ran around the room and stuck out their tongue at the video machine and did, the video camera. And so there was that difference in behavior. The next step was the researcher had women critique the video and men critique the video. The women said, look at how nice those girls were. They did what they were supposed to do, and those boys were just awful. The men said, those girls were little toadies. They were just doing what the teacher told them. Those boys were really showing it. So it was that kind of world. And I think it probably still is that kind of world out there. But we have to recognize what that world is and deal with it, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
Excuse me, I have a question now.
Good.
So based on what you just said, and I know most of us are at least, at the very least, political junkies to some degree.
All right.
So, and the question was asked earlier in terms of our political climate at this time, what is inspiring you all to run or anything like that? Now, this question, I'm going to say, is primarily to you, Teresa, because you're a Republican.
Okay, I'm ready.
Yeah. So actually, I have 2 questions. One is conservative, moderate conservatism that you said.
Compassion, yeah, okay.
Compassion, conservative compassion.
Yeah.
That's one. The other is, and it will be general, but still specific just because of who's in administration now. So based on what Jean just said, in terms of the men said, based on the video, look at those boys. Yeah, look at them. They're going at it. They're doing what boys do. So when we have a president such as Donald J. Trump, who is out there, as the political pundits say, giving red meat to his base, and saying things like, hey, you men, we've got to watch out for our brothers, so to speak, in terms of these women, these #MeToo women who are, taking us to task. And by the way, it's all not true, in terms of any sexual assault or anything like that. And so he's saying, look at, we're raising up men like Kavanaugh, and he's a good guy and all of that. So what do you say, or what have you said, and what can you say to us all, in terms of that kind of rhetoric that our president, our Republican president, has spoken and continues to speak all across the country as he's out there doing his rallies, how first of all, does that affect you in some way that you're not like happy with that, or
Oh, I'm not happy with it.
Okay.
No, so yes, no, I'm not happy about it. And I kind of role played, and that's what I do in my head. Okay, is somebody going to ask me a question about President Trump, and how am I going to respond to that? So I was kind of ready. I knew where I was coming, so I was kind of ready for that. Obviously, he's not somebody we're inviting to dinner. The things that he does is not acceptable. The behaviors and the antics that are created by our president it's unfortunate that he is there. I don't know if I like to focus on who I am and why I'm running, and I'm not going to give credence to his behavior. That being said, there is such a divide about this whole Kavanaugh thing, and you referred to it, and I think that it's very difficult because what we've done is we're passing judgment on what's socially acceptable now, or what's behavior based on the behavior that was, I don't want to say it was acceptable, but it was common practice in the 80s. I was a victim of that. I was a well-endowed high school student, and I would walk down the hallway and boys would pinch my breasts, and I'd come home and I'd have bruises. So I went to my mom and I said, Mom, what do I do? And she goes, that's just what boys do. And I was like, oh, okay. So that was the culture then. And so can I go back and name the 5 different boys that would do that and say this, 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 and this? I don't know. I don't know what's right. I just learned to take my books and walk down the hallway. The problem is I see both sides of the story. I understand that, and I don't know what the right answer is. I can certainly empathize, but with 3 sons, now in today's society, it would absolutely not be acceptable. And we've taught our boys that. And so any child now, any young man in college now, it's not acceptable. And I think the culture has changed now. But we're basing decisions on things that were culturally acceptable back then with today's expectations. So I think it's hard. But no, Donald Trump is not my guy.
But of course, I think we can all agree that it's never acceptable. That kind of behavior is never
Absolutely,
acceptable.
absolutely.
Whatever cultural time we were in.
Absolutely.
So-
But then my question would be, what's the ramifications of that? How do we go back and fix that? Can I go back? I mean, for me, it was my resiliency. For me, it may have been therapy, it may have been whatever. That bounce back ability had to be there, but I don't know what we can do about it now. I just have to move forward.
This is a really tough topic because in my opinion is, and it's not shared by everybody, but when you're appointing somebody to a lifetime appointment on the United States Supreme Court, that the bar needs to be set higher than what was shown, not only in his mannerisms as he was testifying or in the allegations that were brought forth, and then sort of the lack of our U.S. Congress all of a sudden, just trying to rush a job and not do their job with the time that it deserved was beyond disappointing to me. And I think that that's what made it more politicized. Of course, the FBI should have looked into those allegations that she had and that other people had, and they gave him a week. Senator Flake did, which was great, but then Dr. Ford wasn't even questioned during that week's time, and neither were some other people. So it really left a bad taste not only in my mouth, but I think in a lot of other people across the United States, and they're still frustrated about that. I think that cultural norms have changed, but it wasn't okay back then, and I still believe it's not okay now. And so it is different too, because we're not just talking about somebody who is trying to get a job, in the public or in the private sector, or a job, somewhere else, maybe in government at a lower level. This is a lifetime appointment to the U.S. Supreme Court. And I just kind of keep going back to that Congress really missed the ball here, and they did not do an adequate job, not only in their timeline, but in, the way that they handled the entire situation. And we're going to have to live with that now. He's sitting on the Supreme Court, and every vote matters. And I think about the 800,000 Iowans who voted for Donald Trump. And this was the result that we have, this person who's sitting on the Supreme Court who acted the way they did at his hearings, and also maybe previously acted, we won't really ever know the answers to that, because I don't think a thorough FBI investigation has been held. But, he'll be sitting on the Supreme Court making judgment on cases for his life.
But he can be removed. So there are ways that he could be removed. From what I understand about the legal system, is that there are ways that he could be removed if things were to come up in hearings, and so he can be removed.
Yeah. I really feel that the opportunity that we had, I know that there is an opportunity to remove a sitting Supreme Court justice that hasn't really happened, that I've ever seen in my lifetime. I don't know historically if there has been a Supreme Court person who's been removed from office, but the job should have been done beforehand, before he took the oath of office. And I don't think a good enough job was done, and that's really unfortunate for moving forward.
All right, have we concluded this? Yes.
Raises the question about women who want to run for public office. Might they anticipate being sexually harassed? Have any of you been sexually harassed? How would you advise women who want to run for office to deal with such occurrences?
All right.
Well, as a social worker, and going into most of my life, I've been working with those with mental illness, and so what I've had to do is kind of just tuck in the back of my brain. If they're really nasty, then I just say, okay, they're just sick, I need to just move on. I've been called the C word, I've been called every word, and so I think that that's a part of sexual harassment as well. And I couldn't go to my boss and say, yeah, I'm not going to go see this guy anymore because this is what he does. So then, we had to make arrangements around that. So I've had the availability to be able to work around that, and I'll probably be the first whistleblower. If something happens to me, or if it's not acceptable behavior.
Do either the other of you want to answer that question?
Well, I think as a woman, I've been harassed and all of my life. My maiden name was Wolf, and I used to, every time I walked down the halls at school, it was, ow, ow, ow. And so a lot of people my age group kept their last name, but, I couldn't do it. So I use it as a middle name. But, that's the least of the concerns. As an elected official, I've been spit at. I had a guy that did something in the back of my neck. I don't know what it was, but it ended up wet. I have had them touch me in inappropriate places. They touch you here and you look down and then they do this. And one guy, and it was a guy I served with, I grabbed him by the wrist and I said, listen, you do that again, and I'm going to tell the story on the Bob Bruce radio show about how you do this and how you harass me. And I don't see you doing it to the men. So you see a lot of, one of the things that, it's the realm of it. Sometimes it's the little things that just get to you. I joined city council and they put me down as Mrs. Vernon. Well, to say Mrs. Vernon versus, Mr. Vernon is a world of difference. And I said, I want my name on there. My name is Monica Vernon. Why hide behind Mr. either? I won't do it. You can put Mr. Vernon or you can put Monica Vernon, but you cannot put Mrs. Vernon. And that just threw him into a tizzy. But I think there are all kinds of things like that have happened all the way along. And what's happened to me with the hashtag Me Too and with the whole Kavanaugh thing, and I think all you have to do, forget about it, who's, he said, she said, I think she's right, but just look at what the judiciary requires of its judges. Read those paragraphs and you'll know the answer of why you shouldn't be on there. But You know, that's where I stand. But this, what it's doing to me, and I think it's doing to every woman, is she is remembering, and I believe that 90-some% of women have been attacked, harassed, treated unequally. It's the gamut. I was in market research for 30 years, and I know that this is underreported. So, but what this is doing is, in some ways, it's making us stronger. But I think right now, a lot of women are going through this thing where they're remembering. They're remembering all this old crap. My mom's with me, and she's remembering things that happened to her when Nubo wasn't Nubo, and they lived, you know, in that kind of factory neighborhood. Dumb stuff. So it's like a reliving of all this pain and agony. We're going to come out stronger. All that at a time when, you know, I have 3 brothers, and the one that is, I'm the oldest of 5 kids. The one that's the next year younger than I am, he gets this. He knows he's had white male privilege all of his life. He accepts that. He is gracious. He's a prince of a guy. Then I've got another brother, the next one down, who kind of gets this. He's got a very strong wife who reminds him a lot of it. She's Norwegian from Oslo, and she always compares Europe to the U.S. And, you know, we lose on some of that stuff. They do some cool stuff. My youngest brother, who has the most education of any of us, has a fabulous home, a fabulous wife, kids. He thinks that by these women movements, we're picking on men. And, you know, I won't go into all the difficulty of it because it's been very difficult in our family. But it's like to try to say to him, no, we love you. We love men. I love men. I love my 3 brothers. I'm really close to my dad. I got his legs. I got a lot of stuff from it. Some things I didn't want. But this isn't about hurting you. And that's the part that bothers me the most. We have all these wonderful, smart, strong women who need to vote, and they need to do a lot more than that. And we got to get them all ready. And while we're trying to do this thing, assuming that you guys are fine, you're going to get up from those little chairs in preschool on up and do what you need to do. We got to care about the men too. Yeah. But I don't know how. I think this is going to be one of our biggest challenges, is to be able to say, keep doing what you're doing, or become more sensitive to us, but we're over here bringing up our sisters and our women. And that's, I think, you know, you saw that in the Kavanaugh thing. And I have friends that I grew up with who are over on that side saying, Monica, some of you are too feminist. That's what I just had a friend who lives in Texas tell me. And it's like, so, you know, struggle goes on. We just got to keep fighting. But we got to keep loving those other people and communicating with them, whether it's Democrats or Republicans or men and women. And, you know, my husband came from a strong family of a dad who fought World War II and came back and prepared his 5 sons to fight World War III. And the men were completely different than the women. It's a whole different era. And I deal with that. And boy, this hashtag Me Too thing, he's got 3 daughters and me. He calls us his divas, which we all think is, but we'll take it. But I'll tell you, he's going through the process. And he is mourning things about that happened to his daughters. I mean, it's a weird thing, and I think to some degree all over our country we are. So we'll come out stronger, but there's going to be, the struggle continues.
Right. All right. I think, are you ready to wrap it up?
Do you have any last thoughts, Kirsten?
I think Monica ended that probably the best way, not only in the meeting, but on the conversation, and I appreciate what you said
Yeah.
very much.
Good.
All right.
I'm so glad we met.
Yeah.
Thanks, so good to see you.
Well, this has been fascinating. Give everyone a hand. And my name, for those who don't know it, I'm Carletta Knox Seymour, and I am the AAUW branch president of Cedar Rapids. And so, along with the, you're with Kirk, no, you're with League of Women Voters, Karen Lewis, and Myrna? Oh, I got it right. Yeah, you're the president, past president. Who's the president now?
Jean McMahon.
Right here.
Hi, Jean.
Wonderful.
Good, good. And I want Carol Bernard Freeman to stand up. She's a program director. She helped put this together with her, well, I was going to get to it. A member of her team, Trudy Sunderman. And Sue Jorgensen has helped out enormously. And so I'm just grateful for everybody to be here. And Barb Goins, who is not here right now. But, you know, this has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation. The panelists did a great job in terms of answering, I think in some ways, some kind of difficult questions. Thank you, Teresa, for
Put it out there.
Yeah, putting it out there. I had to put it out there.
Absolutely.
But I'm glad that you were ready, because that's what you're supposed to be.
Strong woman.
You're supposed to be ready. And because I ran, as Monica was alluding to earlier when she pointed me out, that I ran for city council a couple of different times. And the first time, particularly the first time in running as, you know, you don't want to say that black woman, Latina, whatever, but it's true. You know, I mean, I have a calling card. Hey, you know, so the reality for me that I experienced was that, yes, there was a lot of support, and yet there was not a lot of support. And there was as it turned out for me, there was more of a good old woman's, white women's club. And you know, so I, as a black woman, I had to find my place and find my space and connect with people who I could talk to and who would support me. It was a little difficult, but I made my way through, and in that particular first race, I did come up with being one of the persons for the runoff. And so that was very encouraging, and I got a little bit more money out of that, you know. And you're right, in terms of raising money, it's a little difficult at first if you're not used to doing that, but then you learn that you better do it. And so, you know, it is difficult. The second time, not so much, but I still, what happened is that you get recognized for stepping up to the plate. For such, and I didn't even look at it like that, and I don't think you guys do either, or did, because you just do something that's from your gut, as you pointed out, Monica, and then everything else kind of takes over, because that's what you're there for. You're not there for all the lights and the glamour and the glitter, because you won't get very far. But if it's in your heart, of hearts, to do something for the people at large, that's what gets you over. And even though you have the morning after, the night after, where you're going to cry, and you know, those kinds of things, you go, wow. Then you realize, first of all, you didn't do it for yourself. You did it for others. And then you realize, as time goes on, that people remembered you and remembered what you stood for and that kind of thing. And that gives you more encouragement. And so I'm grateful for the experiences that I've had. Plus, I was a city planning commissioner for 2 terms, and that's really what opened the door for me to run in the first place, because I saw people from all different parts of our city who were coming with their cases about different things. And so that opened me up to understanding there's a lot going on in this city that need attention. And there wasn't anybody that I felt that was really, you know, taking that charge and going forth to do those kind of things. So I applaud you women, and I applaud you, Jean Lloyd Jones. Where does the George come in?
Well, there's a Lloyd George
Oh,
in England.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't catch that, so yeah. And I understand, do you have a birthday coming up tomorrow?
I do.
Wow, happy birthday!
I don't know how you knew that.
Well, you know, the birthday told
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jean. Happy birthday to you.
Do you want to reveal how old you will be?
I will be 89.
That's all right. That's really
All Right.
That's all.